get ready, and I'm sure some more folks will be joining here. A few. So if we haven't met, my name is Ellis Hammond. Live here in San Diego, California. Beautiful city. I'm originally from South Carolina, though, so if you wonder why I got the accents, because I'm actually now from Southern California, from the East Coast as well. But excited to be here tonight. I'm going to share you a little bit. I'm going to share my screen real quick. So we started a mastermind community called Kingdom REI. It's a faith-based community for commercial real estate operators in our industry. I was a pastor for 6 years and got into multifamily investing with a real heart and desire to build a community around our business. And so Kingdom REI is the product of that. We have over 40 members today. We're managing around $2 billion of commercial real estate assets. And we do in-person events, we do virtual cohorts, we do webinars, trainings, things like this. And so we learn more about that. KingdomREI.com is where you can do that. And we started a podcast. Was kind of the first thing that we did. It was actually called Kingdom Capitalist, and is now called Kingdom REI. We're at 70 episodes, 150 something plus ratings. And I'll kind of get into the numbers of that today. And I would just say this: the podcast has changed my life. Like everything we've been able to build and have momentum is because we had a platform, we had a podcast. And so excited to hear that you are all getting ready to start a podcast. Hello, Bethany. Welcome. Bethany is part of our mastermind. So glad that you're here. So that's a little bit about who I am, about what Kingdom REI is. And again, what I really want to see is a community of faith-driven commercial real estate operators really excelling and doing amazing things in this industry, just because I think capital equals influence. And this is really what I want to do. And so that's why I'm here tonight, showing up to help you really start a podcast and be able to really succeed and excel in this industry. It's changed my life, and I think it can for you as well. And so here's how I want to start tonight. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but I'm going to go back and forth tonight because I got some things I want to show you to help you. And here's maybe the one call to action, the one trade-off I would give. If you find one thing tonight that you think is helpful, would you leave me a 5-star review on my own podcast? If you come away with one helpful tip, all I'm asking is that you go leave me one 5-star review. So, Bethany, I can only see you. So you give me a thumbs up that you'll go do that. Absolutely. So that's what I want to leave you. Go do that. Here's why I think you should start a podcast. Like I said before, I was a pastor. We'd only purchased 2 deals before this year. And, we were kind of unknown. We were living in obscurity. No one knew who Ellis Hammond was. No one definitely knew what Kingdom REI or Kingdom Capitalist was. No one knew that I had a mastermind, and we were trying to build this community. And literally, I would say in probably 30 to 60 days, we were able to start our mastermind, charge to be able to create revenue. Again, we left our ministry job, had no income because we were trusting God and had a vision for what we were going to go build. And the podcast, having a platform, gave me credibility to people that I was speaking with about, hey, we have this community now. Hey, we're doing these deals. And the reason that is because, and I'll show you the method to this, is that, again, it wasn't that, oh, now that I have a platform, all of a sudden I'm instantly credible, but it's the way that we did it. It's that we were leveraging other folks, and we were interviewing other people, and other people were speaking about me and our brand. And I'm telling you, that kind of rocket shipped us into what we have today. As you'll see, and I'll show these numbers with you because I think it's powerful to see why I think a podcast is so important. And I know you guys already believe this because you're doing it. But let me just show you my numbers here. And again, I don't think my numbers are anything to boast about, but even still, I'll show you why I think this is so powerful. So here's our analytics. We have 26,000 downloads in our podcast, over 70 episodes. So that's a couple hundred downloads per episode. And think about this. Today alone, we had 200 downloads. Over the last 7 days, we had over 1,000 downloads, and we had 337 unique people. Typically, that's around 450 to 500. But I want you to think about this. This week, I spent 1 hour on our podcast, recording. That was all that I did. And today alone, 200, I mean, essentially, if our podcast shows around 30, 45 minutes, so 200 downloads, that put me in front of 200 people today, right? Over the last 7 days, I was in front of 337 people, right? And so you can see like the multiplication of your time from having a platform, right? That's why this is so powerful. Like trust factor goes through the roof. I'll tell you a quick story before I actually get into some tips. When we first started this, and then we had our call to action was our mastermind. Hey, come and be a part of this mastermind. I remember being on the kind of a qualifying call with this person doing an interview. And I asked him all these questions about him. And then we got done. He said, well, Eldis, what else should I be asking you before I decide to join? And I said, well, you haven't asked anything about me. Like, don't you think you would want to know something about me? And he said, no, I listened to your podcast show. Like, I already know you. And it hit me. Like, that was when it hit me. Oh my gosh, this is going to be massive. Like, this is what it's all about. Because if you really want to build a brand and you want to, yeah, Bethany, don't throw me off here. If you really want to build a brand, you have to get people to not just know you, but like and trust you. And I'm telling you, the brain does not really know the difference between you and I sitting across the table from each other and you and I on the television or Zoom call screen or whatever. And the reason I can prove that is you think about a guy like Kobe Bryant. I mean, think about his passing, how that affected an entire nation. Why? Because they spent hours, days, years watching this guy on television. And the same can be true about your podcast show. That if you can create something of value that people love listening to, there's nothing they won't do for you, right? And so there's nothing they won't pay you. There's nothing they won't invest with you for. So this is why this is so powerful, this podcast show. So, and also it's easy to grow. I mean, the podcast, I think, more than a YouTube channel, more than an Instagram page, more than a LinkedIn page, a podcast, I think, is one of the easiest things to find a following for. People listen to multiple podcast shows. They listen to them while they're in the gym, on the go, on the train, right? It's easy, and podcasters listen to a lot of podcasts. That's what I've realized. So let's get into kind of the start. So tonight we're talking about starting and scaling your real estate podcast show. So the first part I want to talk about starting. And here are the couple big questions that I think you got to ask when you're starting your podcast show. First question is this. And honestly, these are the 3 questions you should be asking for any business venture, but it also makes sense for a podcast show. And the questions are this. One is, who am I? Second question is, who do I serve? And the third question is, what do I do for them? So who am I? What do I do? Who do I serve? And what do I do for them? And let me just kind of explain that a little bit. Who am I? I mean, this is such an important question because this is going to be what distinguishes you from all the other podcast shows. So for me, I spent 6 years as a Christian missionary, right? And so part of my story was my faith, my walk with God, and bringing that into the marketplace. And so I knew I wanted to have a podcast show that was unique to that. I looked in the market and I didn't really see that there were a lot of great shows out there that were really speaking about this. And that was unique to me because it was who I am. It was something I was passionate about. It was something I could talk about. It's something that I wanted to learn about. And it was who I was. Second, who do I serve? Well, I knew that I wanted to serve investors. I wanted to serve entrepreneurs. And so I knew I needed to create a show that was really catered to them. And then what do I do for them? Well, when we originally started our podcast show, the thing that I was trying to do for Christian entrepreneurs and Christian investors was teach them or show them how to really merge their faith and their business together. And so once I was able to identify and answer those 3 questions, what I was going to do became really easy. Who I needed to interview and what I needed to talk about became very easy. The questions that I asked my guests became very easy because I answered those 3 questions. And so if you haven't done that yet, who am I? What's unique about you? Who do you serve? Getting really clear about who is the person that you serve. And I don't know if you've heard me say this or listening to my content before, but around question number 2, who do you serve? Got to get specific, because you cannot serve everyone. The reason, like going back to my numbers, I don't have a ton of unique listeners, about 300 or 400, but based on my numbers, all 400 of them listen to all 3 shows. I put out 3 episodes a week. And based on my numbers, most of those folks listen to every single episode. Why? Because I have a committed follower base. Why? Because my audience is so niche. I am serving a very specific audience. Faith-based real estate operators and entrepreneurs, right? Like it's niche. And so I encourage you to do the same thing, to really identify who it is that you serve and get really clear. Because then as you're asking questions, as you're interviewing, as you're creating more content, that's going to be really huge. And then I want to answer this question too. I wrote this down because I thought this was really helpful, because I'm kind of a cynic in some ways. And I think I look at the podcast scene and I think, man, there's just so many darn real estate podcast shows, or there's just so many financial podcast shows, or there's, fill in the blank, whatever it is. Do we really need another real estate podcast show? And I think to myself, if I see one more real estate podcast show, like I'm going to flip out, right? Because there's just so many of them. And so you might be asking yourself the question, well, is it worth it to start another podcast show? Does the world, does the community really really need another one? And so today I interviewed a guy by the name of Rod Khalif. He's a pretty well-known guy in the multifamily industry. And he just did his 500th episode today. And he has over 1 million downloads or subscribers. So he's one of the largest, I think, real estate podcast shows in the world, or definitely in the country at this point. And I think oftentimes when I think about podcasting, I think that I have to compete with the Rod Khalifs of the world. And so when we think about our own podcast show, we're like, oh man, does another real estate show need to happen? Because there's already a guy like Rod who has this massive following. And let me just remind you on this, and I have to remind myself this as well. My investors and my audience, my listeners, most of them have no idea who Rod is, right? Like they don't know who Rod is. Even though Rod has 500 episodes and 1 million downloads, they don't know who that guy is. They don't know who all these other podcasts and real estate people are, because like you got to think more local, right? More local based about your podcast show. You don't need to strive right away to go be the #1 podcast show out there. What you're trying to do is serve a particular niche, serve your people, your community. And so the answer is yes, they do need you, because most of them, depending on what you do, probably don't know who that go-to person is yet. You do, because you're in this space, because you're in this industry, right? In the real estate industry. But most, for example, if you raise money from investors, aren't going to know who those people are, right? Most people don't even know what, for us, we do syndication. Most of our investors don't really even know what syndication is, much less know who the leaders of the syndication space are. And so, yes, the world does need your podcast show, and I think you have absolutely every reason to start it. And so, again, you've answered, who am I, who do I serve, what do I do for them? Here's a couple points. I think if you're starting a podcast show, you must do interview style. You must do an interview style interview. Hey, Adam, welcome, bro. Glad to see you here, man. Adam's another great podcaster with a great show. Adam was actually my first ever interview that I did as a guest. So thank you, Adam, for giving me my start. I think I've been on at least 100 at this point, but you were #1, man. You can't replace #1. So I think everyone has to do interview style. And here's why, because the fastest way to grow your podcast or grow your audience is to hack other people's audiences. So if you're starting out, you don't really have an audience yet, you must go interview style. Because if you really want to grow and grow fast, the best way to do that is to bring on me, for example, to your podcast show, and then get me to share your podcast. Why? Because all of my audience will see me and say, oh, I'll go listen to that episode with Ellis. I wonder what he's about, or wonder what he talked about there. And then they get introduced to your show, right? And so you must do interview style is point #1. And then you must do it at least weekly. Like consistency is the key. right? So interview style, and you must do it weekly. Those are kind of 2 tips of starting out. Here are the steps. I want to get to some steps about starting out. We're going to talk about scaling as well. So hang on with me. And I have an awesome PDF I'm going to give to you guys too that I use when starting from this. But let me give you some steps to starting. So if you're starting a podcast, here's the thing I did, and I wish maybe some things I wish I would have done differently when starting my own podcast show. So I know a couple of you are starting a show. I think everyone's probably starting a show except Adam. So here are the things I would have done. Pay attention. Create a lead magnet before you start your show. Create a lead magnet and create a landing page. And why is that important? Because you can have a great show, but if it's not helping you build a list and helping you actually get in contact with the people that you serve, what's the point, right? Like, so if you don't have a lead magnet and somewhere to send people to at the beginning or at the end of every show, then you're doing all this work and really will have no results to show for it. And so again, going back to the questions, who am I, who I serve, and what do I do for them? That will help you develop a really good lead magnet. For me, when we started, it was our mastermind, right? So, hey, if you're interested in this and want to learn more about our community, go to this page and learn about our mastermind. It really wasn't that great. I wish I would have had something different. But what I do now, I have a couple different lead magnets that we'll toss out and people can go download, right? They can text and get a lead magnet. And so I just think that's so, so important is when you start your show, give something of incredible value that people must go take action on after they listen to your podcast. And don't stop giving out that call to action. Now, if it sucks and no one's downloading it, you probably need to go create a different call to action, right? A different lead magnet. But that's one thing that I'm trying to get better at. And I realized even this year, probably after 20 or 30 episodes, man, I'm doing all this work. Man, I have all this great audience, but I'm not really seeing results. Like, honestly, it wasn't helping the bottom line of our business. And I realized because I'm not giving people a call to action. I'm not helping my audience know how to take the necessary steps in order to work with me. And so I do think that's super important, creating a lead magnet, creating a landing page. And then the second step, you got to start recording shows. So Linda, you said you're doing 3 shows already. You're trying to get things going. We use Zoom, by the way, to record all of our stuff, and it's pretty simple. But here's a big takeaway. And Linda, you said 3, and so I think this might be really helpful for what you're doing. I think to start, you need to record at least 10 shows before you publish. You need to have 10 in the hopper, and I'll tell you why. Because when you start, this is the method. Here's the game plan for you to start. I'm telling you, this is just going to save you a ton of headache, and it will also help you kind of get out of obscurity, and actually get some momentum with your podcast show. I did a 2-week launch, okay, a 2-week launch, and here's the launch sequence. First, you need to submit a trailer episode. The start of week 1, on that Monday, you need to submit a trailer episode to all of the hosting websites. So Apple iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, right? If you use something like Simplecast, they'll do all of this for you. But essentially, you have to submit a trailer episode because it takes about a week for your podcast to get approved by iTunes. So that's why you need a 2-week launch. Submit a trailer, 3 to 5 minute episode, just saying what this is going to be about. And get it out into the world. That way, Apple iTunes can approve your show on their platform. Okay, that's on day 1 of your 2-week launch. Day 2 of your 2-week launch, you're going to go to your friends, your family members. You're going to go through your contact list, and you're going to text people the link to your podcast show. And you're going to say this: hey, I'm about to launch this show. Would you please leave me a 5-star review? I know I don't have any episodes yet, but this would be really helpful in me launching this show. And here's why. Because your friends and your family really don't care about your show anyways. They're probably not listening to it, and they're not your audience. But they will give you a 5-star review. And so why is it so important is because when you do launch and when you do have people that are coming to your show that you do want to serve and do business with, what do you think looks better? Coming to your podcast show and seeing no reviews in 3 or 4 episodes, or coming to your show and already seeing that you have 40 or 50 reviews, 5-star, and you have 3 to 4 episodes. Instantly, it's like, oh, this person's credible, right? Now, they don't know it's your mom and your uncle and your 5 cousins that left you 5-star reviews. That's not really important. What's important is that, when they come there, it leaves them, gives them a better reason to want to hit subscribe. So try and get 30 or 40 reviews. And again, it takes Apple iTunes a while to approve those reviews. So that's why you want to do it 2-week launch, day 2. You're leaving plenty of time before you start launching in week 2 for those iTunes reviews to get published, right? So reviews are massive. Promote on social media would be my kind of next step during that first week. And then here's what week 2 would be. This is why I think 10 shows is so important, to help you kind of get out of obscurity and get you some momentum. I think on day 1, when you're ready to launch, day 1, you need to launch 5 shows. 5 shows at the same time. And so think about this. If you've only recorded 5 shows and you launch all of those on day 1, then you have no more shows left. Actually, I would say this too. Maybe not 5 shows day 1, but probably at least 3. So 5's a lot. If you're going to do 5, you probably actually need to have about 15 in the hopper. But day 1 or day 1 of week 2, right? We're in the second week of launching. Day 1 needs to be 3 shows, and then 1 show every day for a week. So Tuesday 1 show, Wednesday 1 show, Thursday 1 show, Friday 1 show. Why is that? One is it's the algorithm. Apple kind of sees that. You can get more traction. More people are going to be learning about it. Also, you'll have a ton of content on social media. Every time someone goes on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever, they're just going to see about your new show. Like, I got to go listen to this, right? You're going to have all these people coming to your show, listen. Apple's going to pick that up like, oh, wow, this is a hot new show. We should send people to this, right? And so day 1, 3 shows, and then 1 show every single day for the first week. So it's essentially about 7 or 8 shows in week 1. And then 1 a week after that, if you're going to go to a weekly show. And so, Linda, you said you only had 3 shows. I just don't think you're ready yet, honestly, to launch your podcast. Put more in the hopper when you're getting ready to launch. You're going to thank me for that, for all of those things. So go get your reviews, go get more shows, and then get ready for that. All right. That really is the start. I think once you do that, you're off to the races. For those of you who are in the chat, type in your questions about starting, but I want to move to scaling because this is where we are now. And, if you're just I think what we just kind of just getting into podcasting, what I left was really good. But I definitely want to talk about scaling because there's some folks here too that already have a show and want to learn about what we're doing. So scaling our show. The hardest thing about a podcast is the consistency. And there's a lot that goes into recording the show, editing the show, getting it out there for people to learn about it, right? How do you chop up the content? Yeah, Bethany, great question. I'm going to drop you a PDF that's going to show all this stuff for you. So I'm going to make sure you get all the information to what service we use. So the first step in scaling your show is to hire a VA, a virtual assistant. And it's a must, because for $8 to $12 an hour or $20 an episode, all you have to do is hit record. And now, let me walk you through my process. This is what we do, and I'll show you all that my VA does. I record, so I'm recording a person on Zoom. We record it to my computer, and then it goes to Dropbox because my Dropbox is linked to my computer. So it uploads to Dropbox. My VA has access to my Dropbox folder. Soon as the show's over, we use Simplecast is the product that we're using, and I'll go in and I'll create the show name, the show number, and the show notes. So as soon as the podcast is over, it's fresh on my brain, I'll go and I'll create the episode. And then I'll also create the show notes, the links that I need in there. And so literally that's all that I do. I record, I create the show and show notes, not the episode. I don't edit the episode. I'm just going and creating a draft that has the show notes and the title of the show. My VA comes behind me, right? Because we interview, like we're at least 2 months ahead right now. He will go in and edit that show. He'll take the edited copy and then upload it to Simplecast underneath that show title. He'll schedule the podcast show for me. And then what he does is he takes a clip of that. He'll go back and listen to a few minutes. He'll find a quote. He'll take the photo of that person. We use Google Drive. Essentially, we use Calendly and Google Drive. So anyone who comes on my show, I send them a Calendly link. They find a time on their schedule that works. As soon as they fill out the Calendly link, it redirects them to a Google form. In that Google form, they have to give me their photo. I ask for a photo. So then my VA has access to that Google form. He'll take that photo of that person and he'll put a quote in front of their photo. And I'll tell you why that's so important is because that quote is how you're going to scale your podcast. Because what do we all really, we all want to look good on the internet, right? Like we all want people to share our face, share our business, share our brand. And so the easier you can make it for people to share your podcast and the better it makes them look on the internet, the more willing they're going to share that. And so the thing that we found to be really helpful is two things: a short video clip that they're talking about, with them spotlighting them, or a really powerful kind of image quote that's really easy to share. People like seeing their face alongside of something smart that they said so they can share with their audience. And so the VA will take that image quote, he'll go share it across my social media sites. And here's a huge tip: that VA will go and share that image quote to several different real estate Facebook groups. And we typically get away with that because it's not really considered spam. We're kind of adding something of value to this Facebook group. A well-known speaker with a pretty good quote in the Facebook group with our logo of our podcast, right? So, we're kind of we're checking off all the boxes. And so if you want to know how much this cost me, my VA, I think I pay him about $12 an hour. So somewhere between $8 to $12. And he records, he edits 3 episodes a week. He creates those pieces of content that I was telling you about. He uploads all those to the different Facebook groups. And he does a little bit of interaction. And I think per week, I end up paying him around $70 to $90. And so if you don't think that's worth your time, then you don't value your time very much, right? Because what you need to be doing is creating more content, getting your brand out there, finding other great guests to be on your show. That's the roles that you need to be doing. All this other stuff to really scale your podcast, get it off your plate. And a virtual assistant is the best way to do that. Now, it might take some time to find a good virtual assistant, but you can definitely get someone pretty quickly to at least edit your show, make it sound professional, kind of get it all clean and together, and upload it on your platform. Highly recommend scaling it that way. The last thing I would say about scale is this: the quickest way to scale your podcast show is to get people to share it. How do you do that? Well, your guests are going to be your most important people, right? The most easy way for folks who want to share it. And I will be honest with you, it's hard to get guests to share my show. And here's why. People are busy. And they're on a lot of shows too. And I know this because I'm on a lot of podcast shows, and people will, once they have me on their show, they'll send a follow-up: hey, your podcast is live. Thanks for coming on. Would you share it with your audience? Let me give you a couple of tips. No one's probably going to share that show with their email list, right? People get too many emails as it is. To send another email is really annoying. They're probably not going to email it. So forget about that. So how do you make it really simple for them to share? The best way that I've found is to do two things. I email them 3 times. So I email them on Monday, I email them on Wednesday, and I email them on Friday. And just so you think, if you think that's a lot, let me show you something real quick. My virtual assistant does this as well. So actually, let me do it this way. So my virtual assistant, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, will send me a reminder with this link and say, hey, Ellis, don't forget to send guest of the week this email. And so I just copy this email, go to my email, and hit send. And I do this on Monday, I do this on Wednesday, and I do this on Friday. Because I'm busy, and I know people send me stuff to share their podcast show, and I don't do it like 99% of the time. And it's not because I don't want to share their show. It's just because I see it in my inbox. I'm like, oh, cool, I'll get to that later. And then do you really get to it later? No. So I send them a different email 3 times a week with the image that I want them to share. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's one thing I would do. And again, my virtual assistant does all of this. I wrote this email, by the way. He didn't write the email. I wrote the email. I put it into a Google Drive, and I said, hey, man, all I want you to do from now on is change the photo, change their first name, and change the links, and then send it to me, and we send the same 3 emails to all of our guests every single week. And most people share this. The other thing we do that I find to be most helpful is you sharing it across social media sites and tagging them, because that's the easiest way for them to see it, to share it. And always, 100% of the time, if someone tags me on LinkedIn on something they've created with my face or name in it, I will 100% comment and share it, because it's just easy. Comment and share. So 5% of the time, I'll share something that they emailed me. 100% of the time, I'll share something on LinkedIn. So like, those are your 2 ways to do it. If you're going to go the email route and you want them, you're going to send some more things that they could probably use to share their audience, send them a couple emails per week. It's not annoying. They get a lot of emails. Trust me. If someone sent me 3 emails per week telling me about how good my podcast show is doing, let me show this to you again, just so we're clear here, because I think this is important. First, email 1, hey, big news, your podcast is now available for download. Email 2, hey, this week has been great. Your show has already received several hundred downloads, right? If you haven't shared it yet, please do. Hey, guest, getting awesome feedback from your episode. Please make sure to let everyone know about it so more people can listen to the amazing conversation we had. Now, all those are pre-written, but they're not lies. I know by Wednesday we've gotten several hundred downloads because we get them every single week. And I know by Friday I've probably gotten several LinkedIn messages telling me how awesome their show was. So that's not a lie either. And it just makes my life simple. So if you think I'm being deceitful, well, you haven't started your podcast show yet. So, all right. That's my tips to starting and scaling your real estate show. Listen, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna drop a link for you guys who are just getting started. This is a PDF that I use from these guys at Legacy Podcasting. This is one of the most helpful PDFs I've found to really starting our show. And this will give you so many good, we use Simplecast to host our shows. Editing, Linda asked about. My VA does that, Linda. I have no idea. I've never edited a show in my life. And yeah, Matt, we use Simplecast. I really like it. I looked at Podbean. I like Simplecast the best. They have a really clean face. If you want to like clip audio or clip the audio, they have a really clean, like if you want to also embed the audio player on your website. I think they have the best looking audio player to embed on your website. So we use Simplecast. It's really affordable at $15 a month for their basic package. And that's what we go with. And we've been using it. No problems. really have enjoyed it. So to answer those questions, happy to take more questions about starting and scaling your show. Seriously, if you got value from this, I'd love a 5-star review. And the other thing I want to say is, if you're in the world of real estate investing, you're a faith-based operator, I would love to introduce you to our mastermind. We have an incredible offer that we're going to be launching for 2021. We have 3 in-person events. We have 3 workshops that we're going to be doing. And so you can, I love to, if you're not, and there's a couple people in here, but if you're not in that, you want to learn more about that, let's get in contact. Go to oneconnectionaway.com is where you can actually apply and schedule a call. And I'd love to get you plugged into that community, oneconnectionaway.com. You can go to the next, you'll essentially, it's a funnel. You'll give me your email address. You'll go to the next page and you can schedule a call, and would love to chat about doing that. Awesome, Linda. You have an appointment with me tomorrow. Love it. Anything else? Happy to answer any more questions about starting and scaling for the next few minutes. But I mean, those are the things that I really took away. We've been doing this for a year now. Get started. Podcasting has changed my life. I think everyone should have something like that. Anything else while we're here? What's the link to leave a review? Great question. Thank you, Bethany. Hold on. Here it is in the chat. Send to everyone. Boom. 5-star review in a written. So Jesse asks, I do a monthly virtual meetup with Zoom. Do you recommend broadcasting that as a podcast? Yeah, I mean, for sure. And, are you putting that on YouTube, Jesse? Because I think as many places as you could get it, I think is helpful. But yeah, I think the podcast is really great. Is a really great way. As long as your audio is good, right? Like audio is so important with podcasting. So, if you're speaking most of the time, or if you have certain people who are speaking consistently, make sure they get a decent mic. I think that would be the one factor in that, is just making sure they have a good mic. But yeah, man, I think you should definitely be stripping that audio and doing a podcast for sure. Yeah, I have a mic I recommend. It's this one, but it honestly just broke on me this week. It's called Audio Technica. Audio Technica ATR 2100 USB mic. Audio Technica ATR 2100 USB. This thing is crystal clear. It's, I think, like around $100 on Amazon, and it does a really good job of like keeping outside noise away. So I highly recommend this mic. I've had it for about a year. Unfortunately, it actually just kind of broke on me though. It's not picking up my sound anymore. So, but it was really good for a year. I'm probably going to buy it again. For the price, is the best one. Does that help, Matt? You said any tips on getting good audio? Been having issues catching good quality audio. Yeah, you got to get a mic, man. Get a mic, buy some of these things on Amazon, and do that. So having a mic is good. Cool. Any other questions before we get out of here? I hope this was helpful. Listen, go to oneconnectionaway.com. I'd love to schedule a call with anyone who's not currently in our mastermind community. I'm telling you, we're building an amazing community that is going to change this industry, and we're going back to in-person next year. So we got 6 events that we're planning in person, and so we know there's COVID out there, but we're going to be careful, and we're going to get back in person because I think people are ready for it. So I'm really excited for 2021. So hey, thanks for that 5-star review. If you have left it, it means a lot. And I just, if I'm ever on someone's show, I typically try and leave them a 5-star review because it does go a long ways. And so reviews, don't be afraid. Here's another thing. Don't be afraid to ask your guest, your audience for a review. At the end of every single show, I'm asking my guests to leave a 5-star review, screenshot my episode, and share it. And I love seeing when people screenshot my podcast shows on LinkedIn and talk about them. So don't be scared to ask your audience for things like that. I'll make sure this recording gets uploaded to our YouTube page, so you can rewatch this or share this if you'd like to. And you can follow me on LinkedIn, Ellis Hammond, and happy to answer more questions and be a guest on your show one day. That would be really fun once you guys are up and running. So let me know. All right, everyone. This was great. Ciao.